It's a little past 11 on a Tuesday night. The lights are off, and you're still in the meeting. Not really, of course. The meeting ended 9 hours ago. But someone said something in it. One sentence, maybe 10 words, and you've been replaying it ever since. 3 replies you'll never send. 2 speeches you'll never give. And when your phone lights up with a group chat deciding something without you, you feel that small tug to check it, just in case. So, a quiet question. When does your day actually end? Not your work day, the day in your head. If you know that hour, tonight is for you. I hope you'll stay with me, because by the end, I want to hand you a single question you can carry into tomorrow morning. It comes from a man who's been gone for nearly 20 centuries. There's a book that hasn't left the New York Times bestseller list for 79 weeks. Right now, it sits at number 1 in its category, The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, a lawyer turned broadcaster whose previous book, The 5-Second Rule, was already a global bestseller. Her advice fits in 2 words. When people disappoint you, judge you, leave you out, let them. Their behavior was never yours to manage. And here's what almost nobody says about the book everyone is quoting. The idea isn't new. Its first teacher lived 2,000 years ago, and he wasn't free to give advice at all. He was a slave. A man who did not even own his own body worked out the idea now sitting at the top of the charts, bought week after week by people who own everything, except a quiet mind. And one more thing, because this is the part that matters. The bestseller has 2 halves. So did his philosophy. Most of us only ever hear the first half, and the first half alone doesn't work. Tonight, you'll have both. His name was Epictetus, though it's strange to call it a name. In Greek, Epictetos means acquired, bought, property. It wasn't what his mother called him. It was what you called a thing you'd purchased. He was born around the year 50 in Hierapolis, a town in what is now Turkey. In Rome, he was the slave of a man named Epaphroditus, an official in the court of the Emperor Nero. He walked with a limp all his life. One ancient tradition says his master was the reason, so this was the ledger of his life. His body belonged to someone else. His time belonged to someone else. Even his name was a receipt. And somewhere inside that life, he noticed something odd. However completely they owned him, there was one room no master's key ever opened. No one else could do his judging for him. No one could decide, from the outside, what he would want, what he would fear, what he would make of the things that happened to him. They could command his hands, they couldn't command his verdict. It's worth pausing on how strange that discovery is. Most of us, holding almost everything, feel we control almost nothing. He held nothing, and found the one thing he did. He was eventually freed, and he began to teach. Then, around the year 89, the Emperor Domitian ordered the philosophers out of Rome. A man with a long history of losing things now lost his city too. He crossed the sea to a Greek town called Nicopolis, and there he did the one thing left to do. He opened a school. He taught until he died. He never wrote a single book. A student wrote down what he said, and later gathered the essentials into a booklet thin enough to carry anywhere. It came to be called the Enchiridion, literally, in the hand, a handbook in the oldest sense of the word. And its first sentence is the entire bestseller, 20 centuries early. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. What's up to us, he said, is our judgment, our impulses, our desires and aversions. In a word, whatever is our own doing. What's not up to us is our body, our property, our reputation, our position. In a word, everything else. He had a name for that inner faculty, the choosing part of you, prohairesis, the one thing, he taught, that cannot be blocked from the outside. Everything else can be taken from you. This one thing can only be handed over. You can see why he would know. Most people who taught philosophy in Rome had learned it from books. Epictetus had run the experiment on his own life. Now let me jump forward 2,000 years, because this is where the story stops being merely beautiful and starts being testable. In 2018, a team of researchers published a set of studies in one of psychology's flagship journals. The lead author was Brett Ford, a psychologist who studies how our attitude toward our own emotions shapes our mental health. They weren't testing Epictetus by name, they were testing a habit they called acceptance, the tendency to let your negative thoughts and feelings be there, noticed, named, and not fought. The first study surveyed more than 1,000 people. The ones in the habit of accepting their inner weather reported better well-being, more satisfaction with their lives, fewer symptoms of anxiety and depression. And the effect stood on its own. It wasn't explained by the other healthy habits those people happened to have. The second study brought 156 people into a lab and put them through a standardized stress test. Same task, same pressure, same room for everyone. And what most reliably set apart the people who suffered more from the people who suffered less was what they did, inside, with the first wave of feeling. The acceptors felt measurably less negative emotion while it happened. And here's the detail worth keeping. Their positive emotions were untouched. Acceptance didn't flatten them. It isn't numbness. It simply stopped a bad hour from being amplified into a worse one. The third study followed 222 people through 6 months of ordinary life. The ones who met their daily stress with acceptance were carrying measurably better psychological health half a year later. The way a single evening was handled, multiplied over months, had become the shape of a mind. Taken together, the 3 studies point the same way, and it sounds like something a slave once said. The feeling itself is never the wound. Fighting the feeling is. The people who push hardest against what they feel are the ones who hold it the longest. Now, somewhere in the last minute, a fair objection has probably formed in your mind. So, I do nothing? Someone treats me badly, my plans fall apart, and I simply accept all of it? Is this a philosophy of shrugging? It deserves a real answer, and there are 2. The first comes from the data. Ford's team found a detail that changes the answer. Acceptance predicted well-being only when it was pointed at inner experience, at thoughts and feelings. Accepting situations showed no such benefit. The science wasn't blessing resignation. It was measuring something narrower and more precise. You accept the storm inside. What you do about the weather outside remains an open question. The second answer comes from the slave himself. When a student talked as if philosophy meant folding your hands and trusting fate, Epictetus had no patience for it. "Are you going to sit there and pray that your nose won't run?" he asked. "Wipe your nose instead." This is the second half, the one that gets forgotten. In Robbins' book, it has a name too. Let them is only step 1. Step 2 is let me. Let them be careless, let them misjudge you, let them choose without you. And then, let me decide what I do next. Let me choose my reply, my effort, my direction. The first half without the second is just resignation with better branding. Both halves together are a complete instruction. Release what was never in your hands and take hold of what always was. So let me make this concrete, because tomorrow we'll test it early. Something will happen, a message with an edge to it, a plan that collapses, a person who does exactly the thing you hoped they wouldn't. Epictetus left a technique for that exact moment. When the first flash of feeling arrived, he would speak to it like something waiting at the door. Impression, wait for me a little, let me see what you are. A strange sentence, and a useful one. It puts one breath of space between the trigger and you. Not an hour of journaling, not a new personality, one breath. And in that one breath, there's a single question you might ask. Is this in my hands? If the answer is no, their opinion, their mood, their choice, the outcome, then you might try, just for tomorrow, doing the strangest thing, nothing. Let them. Not because you're weak, but because you've stopped paying for what was never yours. And if the answer is yes, your next sentence, your effort, how long you keep the phone in your hand tonight, then that's where everything you have belongs. Let me. One question, 2 doors. Which brings us back to that hour past 11 with the lights off. That replaying, the speeches you'll never give, the replies you keep drafting, is your mind holding on with both hands to things that were never in your hands. The sentence was already said. Their opinion of you lives in their head, and you don't have the key to that room any more than his masters ever had the key to that one room of his. What's still yours, even at that hour, is smaller and stronger. The choosing part, the one thing that can only be handed over, never taken. The next thought you feed, the verdict you pass on your own day, the hour you decide is late enough. Whether you set the phone face down and let the group chat decide whatever it decides. Maybe a day ends the way his little handbook begins. Maybe that sentence was never a theory at all, but a bedtime instruction, waiting 20 centuries for the lights to go off. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Thank you for walking this far with me.